Hello and welcome to another edition of the Shadowcast. Today we are going to be speaking to the leader of the Ulster Druids. I'm joined by Chris Ball.
Hi.
And our main guest today is Clive Culbertson. Hello, Clive.
Hey, great. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it. Great.
Well, it's really good to see you and thank you for joining us.
Brilliant.
We'll start off with perhaps if you could tell us a little bit about yourself.
I'm a musician in my day and daily job. I left school at 16 and I've been doing music all my life. I played and toured with Van Morrison. I've recorded with them. I played with Hot House Flowers. I've played with the Chieftains. That's my main thing. My music is my day and daily. Mystically, magically, I'm a healer. I'm a Rosicrucian, a Druid, a Martinist. I'm a Kriya yogi as well. I took that initiation. So I do lots of things because it keeps me interested. I just like looking to see. It's a friend of mine, a minister, always said to me, it's really good. He says, you can decide what you want to believe today. And I said, that's the way to go. Why would you take something you have to believe all the time, every day, every moment? I get up tomorrow. I want to be a Rosicrucian. I'll be a Rosicrucian. The weather is good this afternoon. I'll go up a hill and be a Druid. That's brilliant. So that's where I am, really.
Fantastic. I was looking on your website and it mentioned that you had, along with a few friends, you had something of an epiphany. Can you tell us something about that?
Just our big night in Castlewellan. We were all in the early 80s. We were getting messages. Go to this place, go to that site, go to just voices or something like that. And we went out on the 13th of July in 1984, and we were told to go to a souterrain inside a castle in Castlewellan. And my Druid teacher, Ben McBrady, always said that in their order, they never went inside a castle. But of course, nobody told us. So we arrived at midnight and we're walking up to and there's this dome of light over the castle. We're going, wow, that's interesting. And there's 5 of us, by the way. And we went into the castle, Egypt's, and went down into the souterrain, which is the underground cavern, which was actually like a shape of a cross, long arm, the 2 arms to the side. So we walked up in, had a crouch, and went into the wee room at the top of the right-hand side. And we're all just standing there going, oh, this is really dark, and what are we doing? So we put our hands around each other's shoulders and we started chanting Rosicrucian holy words. And we started move a wee bit. No, I feel you should move that way. And it was almost like there were clicks, like tumblers in a lock. Yeah. Oh, what was that? And then we'd chant a bit more and then we'd move a bit more. And after about 10 minutes or so, or 15 minutes maybe, we're standing there and it sounds like there's somebody coming up the long arm of the cross. And we're sitting going, but there's nobody here but us. There's this blazing light comes up. And you're going like, we can't go anywhere. We're in the room. And so the next thing, this being of light walked up and he stopped just at the door into the wee room that we were in. You're sitting like, what is? And he just went, follow me. And he walked up out the other arm of the cross and we walked out and followed him. And inside the castle, there were about 300 beings. Some physical, some spiritual, some spookily. And they were all inside the souterrain. About 300 of them we reckoned at the end of it all. And it was like there were lots of chanting and there was a guy in a robe with a book. And he kept reading from the book. And we heard him and we knew he was telling us something important, but we couldn't understand it. I always thought afterwards that may well have been the father of Christian Rosicrucians reading to us, and that these were all initiates from past generations in Ireland. That was my thing. Oh, and another Rosicrucian symbolism. When we were all standing, as if it wasn't freaky enough, there's the guy up on the top of the hill, comes up on the horse, and he's brings the horse up, and you go, holy, what's and and Nicholas Roerich always said, beware the rider on horseback. The Rosicrucianism. So, and he just came down, and while the ritual thing was going on, and while we were standing, there was this light started to come from each one of the people and shone into us. Till when we looked at each other, we were all completely full of light, surrounded by light, filled by light, and whatever. And after so long of it, they started chanting, heal the land, heal the land, heal the land. And that went on for, God, 10, 15, 20 minutes maybe, of them just chanting this heal the land. And then basically he closed the big book. The light sort of went, it was like we were at the end, spokes, we were like a wheel. And then the light sort of pulled out of us, went back out to the individual people. And the rider on horseback went up to the top of the hill and did one final up the back legs of the horse, and he was gone. And then they all started to pop and disappear. And then the only person that was left was the guy in the monk's outfit, the Father Rosicrucianism. And he just looked and he said, yeah, what was supposed to be done was done. And he was gone. And it was we were just standing in the middle of this. And apparently we'd been there for almost 3 hours. It didn't feel like that. It felt like we were there 20 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes. But when we came out and looked at our watches, it was 3 hours later. And that was our mission as Rosicrucians. And of course, by that stage, we were really Druids, because that's what we did. We started going around those ancient sites, doing healing work. A lot of the land temple in Ireland, it's very powerful, but it's not working. A lot more of it's working now than was working 30, 40 years ago. So that's what we did. We went around, did rituals, trying to invoke the energy of the land. Interesting story. My friend, my teacher, Ben McBrady, he had a friend, Michael Pointer. You may have seen some of his books. Pointer, I think he's dead now. He genius. And he had actually found, he got Ben to go down onto, I wish I could remember the names of the sites, and I don't, my memory's abominable. Pointer went to another site 40 miles down the road, and Pointer was able to talk in that site, and Ben was able to hear him on the site that he was at, 40 miles apart. And Pointer says, if we get the land temple working, that'll do that everywhere. And we used to get something of that, but not as that. That was really impressive. So heal the land, get the land temple working again. I think it could probably do with more people out healing. I find a lot of the people that are out working here now, they're on the land trying to get something. They're looking for the mystery, the energy. We never did. We just went there to try and open the thing and whatever. I think that's why so many people were working with us at the time, was that I didn't want anything. I didn't want a hat. I didn't want an initiation. I didn't want the title. I just wanted to go and work. So they liked that, whoever they were. And so that's been the guiding thing of whatever work I've been doing for the last 40 years.
Okay, that's an extraordinary story.
That was it.
Go. Were you healing before that evening, or was it afterwards?
We were out doing it. We were out there. We used to end up, you'd be sitting in your meditation and you'd hear a voice. The voice say, "You need to go to. You need to be in Antrim this weekend. You need to be in Enniskillen this next weekend." That sort of thing. Or I would get a message, or David, our leader, would get a message, or someone, and that's what it was. And we just went where, and then we'd pull out the what do you call it? There's the map with all the sites on it, and you would go. We were told to go to Enniskillen. Oh, there's a thing there. Let's go and do that. And we would go and do it. And some days it was incredibly impressive, and some days it wasn't. But I think it was important that we were there. I still believe it's important that we were there.
And you're now a practicing healer of individuals as well as the land, is that correct?
Yeah, I from I was young, if somebody was ill or sore in pain, whatever, I always seemed to be good for pain. I would just bring my hands up, think the hands, and I could feel the energy. And I could put my hands on people even before I ever did Reiki or anything else or Druidry or whatever. And people always say, "Oh, that's great. That's taking that pain away. That's really good. So I've done a whole load of things that I've done Druidry healing. I've done Rosicrucian healing. I've done, obviously I took all the Reiki stuff, and I think it's all useful. The bottom line about the healing thing is all that a working healing system will do is it'll open the crown chakra. It will open the chakras in your hands. And I always say to people as regards healing, anybody who tells you they're healing you, slap them round the head and put them out the door, because they're not. The actual healer has no healing power of any kind within him or herself. And if they think they do, they're going to end up being sick. Because the real healers, the guys that I've been with who have manifested magnificent healings, are the guys who sit down, open the crown chakra, let that energy, whatever it is, the healing power of the universe, come into you, and you can feel it coming in your head, on the shoulders, and down the hands. And within 4 or 5 minutes, the hands are hot, and you know it's going. And I've always said, because I've been blessed to be the person in the middle of getting healing to people. Nothing to do with me. I was just there. That's it. But I was able to get out of the way. I had no problem with getting out of the way. I didn't want to be the healer. I don't care. I just want to be the guy that facilitates the energy coming to that person that needs the help. And that's what my hands are actually getting hot now, even thinking about it.
Could you explain to our audience what a chakra is?
There are points in the body, energy points. They're physical, I think, and psychic. There are 7 major ones. Part of the Rosicrucian work, very specifically the Rosicrucian work, is about accessing those and making them work. I'm trying to think of some of the ritual things I can mention. It's about bringing the energy in that I may become a truly awakened, illuminated, enlightened being, more able to serve in the world. And a lot of it, one of the things that we do in the old Gaelic order, and again, this has not been talked about anywhere else, I am a high priest of the sun god. The old Gaelic order was an order started in 1200 BC in Phoenicia, of which my teacher Ben McGrady was probably the last of them that we're aware of. And then he initiated me, and I am it. Part of the ritual is about connecting with the sun. We believe the sun is a living, conscious, awake and aware being. And I know when I go out, I intuit that she knows I'm here. He knows I'm here. And there's a conversation goes on. And people say, you're mad, it's all in your own head. Yeah, maybe so, but it works. And so the point of the matter is that the sun is giving off energy all the time, psychic energy as well as physical energy. And so part of the thing is you bring the sun energy into the chakras you want to open, or into the part of your body that you want to bring healing to. And when you get good at it, the chakra will open. And you can bring some miraculous healing to yourself and to a lot of your own body if you can get the sun coming in, breathing it into the chakra. And it's an incredibly powerful technique, but that came from the old Gaelic order. And I still do. That's my daily practice, is accessing the sun energy. Of course, you don't see enough of it here, unfortunately, but that works when it's out,
Just before I ask you about Rosicrucianism and about old Ben McGrady, I'd like to invite Chris to ask 1 or 2 questions.
Hey, Chris. All righty.
Yeah, just a couple of questions I want to ask you, Clive. Is Druid related to anything with Vikings or no?
Not that I'm specifically aware of. Not that I'm aware of, no.
Do you do any magic for Druids?
yes, there's ritual magic within it, and certainly within the old Gaelic order stuff that I do. There's proper ritual magic, creating a sacred space, working that, calling entities, getting energies. Yeah, there's ritual magic within it.
How long has Druids lived for? How long has culture been going on for?
Culture. The Druid thing has certainly been here pre-Christ, and it's probably even older than that, but probably might not have been called Druidry in its time, in its early day. Whenever the myth story says that in the early part of the 1st century, that Joseph of Arimathea brought Jesus to Glastonbury, to the Druid University, and also brought him to Ireland, to the Druid University in Killeen Cormac in County Kildare. The teacher who was there was Ben McBrady's ancestor, Lugar MacLugar. And it is said that before Jesus left, he initiated Lugar as the first bishop of the Celtic Church, and Lugar initiated him as a Druid. And that's the myth story. I love it. That's brilliant. And so I have that lineage. Technically, I have that lineage from Jesus that Ben passed to me.
Okay. All right, back to you, Lee.
Thank you, Chris. My next question is, can you tell us what exactly is Rosicrucianism?
The true symbolism of Rosicrucianism is the partly opened rose, which is the unfolding of the soul, and the soul on the cross of life. And the the mantra is ad rosam per crucem, ad crucem per rosam, to the rose by the cross and to the cross by the rose, which is the opening of the soul will bring you to full unfolding of life, but living your life fully will bring you to the unfolding of the soul. So this was a group of people who came together to help you unfold the soul energy while you're on the cross of life, as I understand it. I mean, it is incredible. It's been around a long time. It is said there is a lineage of it from Egypt. And I believe there probably was. Might not have been called Rosicrucianism then, but there was certainly that mystical, magical, occulty lineage is coming from there. And a lot of the modern Rosicrucian orders claim that. I'm not certain they can claim it, but certainly they can say it's, again, a myth story. And it's there. A lot of the modern orders use a lot of Rosicrucian, a lot of Egyptian symbolism. And it's really beautiful. It's really, really good. It's like the Golden Dawn. I mean, it's all based on Egyptian symbolism and a bit of weird magical occultism in the middle of it.
And there are 7 cosmic principles. Is that right?
Yeah. When I had to write out the stuff. I had 2 wee strokes last year, so my memory is absolutely abominable. So, but I've got notes with me just to keep me right. 7 principles. The first principle, the all is mind. If in the beginning there was only God, all that is God. And that's the bottom line with that one. What is it? The universe is not a machine. It's like a thought within a cosmic intelligence. And I believe that the all is mind. Everything is the mind of God. The mystical, magical thing is that the mind of God is in you. And that's why the meditation practices that you do are to get in and to connect with that. Connect with, if that part of God is living in you, there's no reason why you can't go in there and find it. And so I'm still looking, I'm still going to find it and you get glimpses of it. And when you get a glimpse of it, it's glorious. It's absolutely glorious. But that, for me, that's it. Everything is consciousness. There's no dead matter. Everything's alive. We talk within the Druidry. The earth's alive. The sun's alive. All of creation is alive and conscious. And it's an interesting way to approach the sun, the earth, or the moon. If you can connect with them as thinking conscious energies, there is an exchange of energy that happens that won't come from other things. People say, is it this, is it that? I don't know. I have no idea. I just do it and it happens. So that was it. The, the principle of correspondence, as above, so below. Now, that's the interesting thing about that. When I was looking at that today, is that in a lot of the old traditions, Egyptian, South America, and all that there, they used to build, what do they call it, the cosmic mirror, where the three pyramids are built as a cosmic mirror of Orion's belt. But there's several of those in India, there's several of those in South America, and they're all the same because they believed as above, so below. So if they make this down here and it's that up there, hopefully you can bring that energy that's up there into here. The interesting thing, when Carl Pribram, great scientist in the 50s, he wanted to find where memory was stored in the body. When he did all the stuff, he used to bring people in and he would cut the top of their head and he would stick a probe down into their brains to find out where memory was. And whenever they did that, he could never find a point where the memory was. But there was one man that he stuck the probe in, and the man said, "Oh, I'm at that baseball game. That was the one where the so-and-so won." And that was, God, he said, I think I'm actually in the stand watching this. He said, but I know I'm in the doctor's office. And he had another woman in, took the top of the head, put the probe in, and she remembered a house that she lived in 30 years ago, and her kids were playing outside, and she could smell the paint, and she could do, and she said, I know I'm not in here, but I'm in here. It's a living 3D memory retrieval, but I know I'm in the doctor's office. So he realized that there was no location. There was no one location for memory. So they did some experiments with rats, which I'm opposed to, but they got the rat in to run the maze. And once they could put it in, ran the maze, and it was fine. They took it out, cut a bit of its brain away, stuck it back in again, still ran the maze, still got to the end of the maze. So they took a bit more brain off and a bit more brain off. And even when the rat had nothing left of the brain stem, the rat could still run the maze. So that means that memory is not in the brain. So where is it? So when he started doing his looking about, he postulated, perhaps, and of course we know with, if I could remember the name and stuff, that fluid that permeates the entire body. I've forgotten it. Memory is in all of it. And that's why he always said that if you had a good thought, your whole body was having a good thought, because that, I've forgotten the name of the liquid that permeates everything, and it carries that thought. That's why in the mystical magical thing, they always say to you, thinking good stuff, because the rest of you will think good stuff. So basically, once Pribram had done all the stuff, he went to meet with David Bohm, who was the greatest of the, oh my goodness. Was he postulated the implicate order, and everything was connected, everything everywhere. So they met up because they knew there was a connection between what they were doing. And Pribram said to him, look, we're thinking the memory thing, memory is stored holographically. It's like a holograph. When you take or hologram, you take the picture, and if you cut it up, you don't end up with a bit of an apple. You end up with an apple in this bit and an apple in that bit. Cut the hologram again, and you end up with 4 pictures of 4 apples. And every part of it is contained in all of it. And David Bohm said to him, what are you thinking? He says, yeah, it's definitely, we think it's all stored holographically. And he went, yeah. He says, we've come to this from physics. We've come to the same conclusion. That's what it is. And then Pribram said, yeah. He said, but what's it a hologram of? And David Bohm looked at hologram of the universe. And I thought, flippin' heck, where it's up, it's us, we're it. And I thought, wow, I shivered when I heard that one. Hope that was a good story.
Fantastic. Yes. I
Now,
think a lot of us
go.
consider where is the end of the universe and how is it bordered? How are their boundaries? And what's beyond that boundary?
Did you read the stuff in the papers about 6 or 8 weeks ago with that new telescope that they've got? They can now see virtually to the edge of the universe, the known creation, and there's a wall of fire. Now, what do you mean a wall of fire? Now, nobody explained it. Nobody thought about it. No, they just said, yeah, really weird. Just seems to be this complete wall of fire enclosing the entire creation. Wow. What that's astounding. I've meditated on that one because I think there's a great truth in there somewhere. I don't know what it is, but yeah, because there has to be a bound. I think there's a boundary to this, because even though God decided she was going to make all this and whatever, is it endless? Probably not. Because even if she was there and she went, I'm here and I'm going to make all this, say in the Upanishads, they talk about God breathing out. She decided, oh, there we go. And that's why they say the universe is still expanding on the out breath. But eventually it's going to get out there and she has to breathe in. She's going to go, it's all going to come back in again and it's going to cease to be. But it's interesting that whole thing about this ring of fire outside the known boundary of the universe. Now, maybe that's only a boundary of our universe. There might be another bit out there. But the fact that there's a fire, wow, that blew my mind. That was absolutely incredible.
It certainly is incredible. And my first thought is surely there does have to be something beyond that fire.
I would think there is. Is it another God with another universe? There's a thought. And then how many gods are there? How many goddesses are there? And that's absolutely fascinating, because that may be endless. That may well be endless. It's like the bit when they all go, I talk to religious people, and I'm spiritual, I'm not religious, about, yes, when I die, I'm going to go up there and go to God in heaven. Sorry, we've seen out to the end of the universe. There's nothing up there. There's nothing living up there anywhere. And if you're expecting anybody to come back from anywhere to do it all for you and fix it, forget it. Nobody's coming back. Nobody's going to fix it. You're on your own. There is no heaven out there with the guy sitting up there with a harp and all that crap. Doesn't exist. It's rubbish. And we've now seen to the end of the universe. We've now seen to the edge of our creation. It's not up there. So maybe it's in here. Maybe that thing that's in here, maybe that's the bit where you become part of the God force. It's like Ben, my teacher, Ben McBrady. Ben always says, well, whenever we die, we don't go anywhere. I go, what do you mean you don't go anywhere? He said, no, he says, the Summerlands are here. I said, they're here? Yeah, he said, different dimension of it, different vibration. It's here. He said, all our people, all our friends, all our families, they're all here. And he said, that's why when you do the Samhain, the Halloween ritual, they're close, because that border between us and them gets thinner and thinner, and it's possible to connect with beings. He said, but they're all here. He said, where else could they go? Where else is there? There isn't anywhere else. And he maintained that our wee creation thing was all self-contained. And this is it. And we're playing the game in this. This is our stadium. This is it. You can't go out there and do, no, we're in here. And I think there's a truth to that. And I know that there's another place, because I've been there and I've seen it, and do you know what I mean? Does that make any sense? Part of the meditations that we did was getting out to see where that is, what is. Ben used to take us out in the middle of ritual, and you would guided visualization, but it was more than that, where the point where you could feel you sucking yourself out of your body, and he would walk you into this other place, and you're going, wow, it is here. This is where it is. And so that's my, I don't really worry very much about the dying thing anymore. I really don't, 'cause it's here. There's nowhere else to go. And so it's not that we lose all connection with the family and the people that we love. We're just over there, and it's here. So we haven't gone a billion miles away or up into the sky no, we're just here. I like that. I like that thought. It's a nice one for me.
Definitely. I have a question about Samhain.
Yep.
Obviously, in the Northern Hemisphere, when it's Samhain, in the Southern Hemisphere, it's Beltane.
Yes.
To my mind, I find it very difficult to get through my head the idea that we are closer to our ancestors if we're in the Northern Hemisphere at the end of October, but in the Southern Hemisphere, that's not the case. To me, that doesn't make any sense. Does it make sense to you?
It's got a lot to do with where the planets are, where we are in those heavenly things, and it's the energy that they bring to us, planets, all those things that are out there, the heavenly things that are where we are in relation to it, that opens the wee door in our hemisphere. And because they're not down there with the door open, and whenever it swings round and it's that time of year for them, and they get then they'll get, when that wee door opens down south, they'll get that then, as I understand it. Should it happen all over the world? I don't know. It still mystifies me that when it's summer here, it's winter there. It still really is, and it does. It really does. But again, that's a physical thing. That's where we are. Where the Earth is in the rotation. What part of it's pointed this way? That's all that. And I think it's just to do with whatever's there for us. I think the ascension of the year down into the. Yeah, I think it's just all that. The energy of the seasonal festivals. Interestingly enough, seasonal festivals, if I can get my memory around it, did not exist. Now I know that people did celebrate summer solstice, winter solstice, stuff like that, but the eightfold year, as we now have it, was invented by Philip Ross Nichols, the guy who began the Order of Bards, Waits and Druids in the 60s, but he did this in the 40s with the beginner of Wicca, whose name is gone completely. Sorry, but the guy who started Wicca, and this guy, Philip Ross Nichols, was a verger in his local Church of England. He was also a Martinist, rituals, ropes and swords and whatever. But it was them that invented the eightfold year as we now have it. I think that's a Church of England verger made the eightfold pagan year, And
I know it does seem an odd thing, doesn't it, that somebody in the Church of England would create something that's become a pillar of Druidry, really.
Absolutely. And I mean, Wiccans and all, because why can't I remember? And I mean, the guy that took the Wicca, he took the eightfold year into Wicca, and they changed it a wee bit to fit their beliefs better. But it's the same thing. One of the things that I did when I was putting together the rituals for my Order of Druids in Ulster, whenever we went to do rituals anywhere, people used to always say, those rituals are really long. They're not really. If you're out and the weather is good, an hour standing up a hillside is fabulous. So people kept saying to me, can we not get shorter rituals? And I always worried about change and stuff. Will it still work if you chop that wee bit out and take this wee bit and add that? So I've got all the seasonal rituals now written up that you can do the entire ritual in about 15 minutes. And it works. It's still got the power. You still connect to whatever the energy is. Solstices, equinoxes, fire festivals. The energy's still there. You're still connecting with it. But you can do it in 15 minutes in your own bedroom, which is really good.
Clive, I've
Yeah.
got a question for you. I forgot. I've just come back to me. Did you do any sacrifices, like with animals or anything like that with druids, or no?
I have never done it, and I don't actually know anybody who's done it. I know that there are pagan groups here who do sacrifice chickens, animals, da 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 da. I actually think if God's sitting up there, the idea of you doing her a favor by cutting the chicken's throat is really, I think she's got something better to do. You know, oh, that's going to make a difference, you know. But the problem is that whole sacrifice thing, it goes right back Assyria, the Jews, you know, the whole thing where the Christ thing came from in the Jewish temple. They used to walk the lamb up onto the rostrum thing up above here, and you walked underneath them, and they cut the throat of the lamb, and it bled over the top of you, so you were saved by the blood of the lamb. So of course, when the Christians came along and they were looking for a thing to hang their hat on, they went, "Oh, that's a good one. Well, he's the lamb now, and he's our blood, and he's okay." But they stole the idea, and so that whole ritual thing that God may be pleased by something being hurt or harmed, I don't work. Doesn't work for me. Doesn't work for me at all. You know, I don't get it. I always say to people, it's like Christians used to always say to me, you know, oh well, you know, if you don't get your life in order, accept this, accept that, you're going to burn in hell, and all the people that don't believe are going to burn in hell. And I said, here's the thing. I love my children and my grandchildren. And no matter how bad they are, I would never get them to be burning in hell for eternity. So you're telling me that I love more than God does? Really? And they, oh, no, that's not what I mean. I said, no, take that to its logical conclusion. You're saying that a human being can love his human children and grandchildren more than God loves us? I said, nah, it doesn't work, that one. And that always throws people. But I cannot see at the end of this, if I get over to the other side and the person who's waiting for me is the grumpy old git who had the freaking lambs killed and things sacrificed, and they're taking your kids up onto a mountainside to cut their throat in the middle of the night, like Isaac and whatever, I just tell him, you know, you're not my God. Let me go. I'll go somewhere else. What I said, Joseph Smith, the great Mormon prophet, whom I adored him. He was a real charlatan, and I loved him. He was great. And somebody once said to him, you know, what happens when this is all over and you find out that the Mormon thing was all completely wrong? And he went, yeah. Well, do you know what it is? He says, well, I'll just go down to heaven or go down to hell and we'll make a heaven out of it.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. You know, that's a good one.
Do you have a favorite ritual?
Huh?
Is there a ritual that you prefer more in terms of the role that you take on, the energy that you might feel?
I have, when the sun's out, the sun ritual that I connect with the sun god, because I am initiated as I'm the high priest of the sun god. And so my thing is, I don't worship. I don't worship anything. The chances are, what is it they always say? If you're caught in a mystical, magical thing and something comes at you, you just tell them, I am the image of God. You can't touch me. So I work with that. So I don't worship anything, not a thing, nothing, nobody, no whatever. But I do reverence a lot of them. Ulster Crowley had a really, really great thing. He said, what you should do is, for about 2 weeks, take that God from that religion, get all the prayers that belong to that God, and then sit down and worship that God for 2 weeks, and then stop, and then go to another religion, get another God, and do 2 weeks of worship in that one, fully and completely and totally, and adoration and all. And he says, you know what it is? You see, after 3 months, you won't know what the fuck's happening. And that's the truth. You'll be so screwed up. You just worship 10 of the great gods or whatever it was, and you'll be completely screwed. You know what? And then you realize that game doesn't work. If you step outside the game doesn't work. This is why I have a dear friend, my dear minister friend. He always said to me about being able to cherry pick what I wanted to believe. I said, but that's what works. Today I want to be this, so I'm going to do that. And today I want to, tomorrow I want to do. And it's like there's a freedom. There's a freedom in that. And sorry, back to the rituals that I do. Ben always said there's a after I do my sun ritual in the morning, we send out peace to all the directions. North, south, west, east, above, below, and within. And then you spin with your arms out and you go, may there be peace throughout the whole world. And you spin 3 times and we have a wee Irish prayer at the end of it. And Ben always said that if he could get everybody in the world to send peace to the directions every day, we could change the world in weeks. And I believe that. So, what is that thing in the Bible? What is it? The prayers of a righteous man availeth much. And I do believe that if you could get people who were out sending that really good positive energy out around, it has to change. It has to change because that power of mind, that power of thought is so powerful. So powerful. And I remember there was a great this happened, oh goodness. The people who do TM and one of the big cities in India, I think it was, and they decided the crime rate was so bad. So they got like whatever it was, so many thousand people for a week. They moved into a big place in the city and they meditated all day, every day. By the end of the week, the crime rate in the city was down like by 80%. And it stayed down for months afterwards because the prayers of righteous people availeth much. And it does. And it does. And so that's the one thing I teach in all my workshops. Do the peace. If you don't do anything else, do the peace to the directions every day. I'll change your life. And hopefully it'll change the world as well, you know. People of goodwill. That's what Alice Bailey always said. It was people of goodwill. And if you could get people to be people of goodwill, I don't want to hurt you. I disagree with you. I don't like you very much. But my goodwill means you're me. I'm you. You're sorry, this is where my head is taking me at the minute. There's a really great system in the Huna tradition called Ho'oponopono, which is a really great system. I love it very much. And what you do, the only way to look at it is there was a man called Dr. Hugh Lane, and in Hawaii, he was brought in to be the chief guy in this people who were criminally insane, who were never ever going to get out because they were too violent. And there were minders in here with sticks to beat inmates and all the rest of it. It was an awful violent place to live. So they brought in Hugh Lane, and the whole year he never saw anybody. He never talked to anybody. And he says all of a sudden these people stopped fighting. They stopped knifing each other. They stopped. Some of the guys actually got out of jail, and they should have been in for. So whenever his year was up, he left, and he went out to. It was one of the nurses met him, wanted to meet him for coffee. Said, "Look, can you tell me what did you do?" Because they ended up after the year, most of the guys were no longer in the hospital for the criminally insane. A lot of them moved on to more sane places. And she said, "What did you do? You never saw a patient. You never did anything." And he said, the whole thing about Ho'oponopono is in NLP, we always say, you're responsible. It's your problem. You did it. It's your life. If it's crap, it's your fault. Crap inside, crap outside, basically. So you're responsible for your crap. But the most amazing thing about Ho'oponopono, they say you're responsible for everybody's crap. Now, that's a mind-boggling thing. So Hugh Lane went in. He used to take people's their files in to his office, and he would sit down and he would see this awful crime that this guy had done, and he would look at it. And he would look at it. He would put his hands in the file. He would look up to heaven, and he would say, "I'm sorry. Please forgive me. I love you. Thank you." Karma East. the karma of the crime eased. Doesn't matter. Nobody gets a freebie, but the karma of the thing, and it eased away. And people who were violently and criminally insane were no longer violently or criminally insane. And that's all he did. He maintained, I'm responsible for that. And that's what he did. I did that for a few years, and it's funny the amount. Does it work? I think so. But it certainly makes a difference of some sort. People over the years who were difficult, not very nice to work with, or whatever. And all I did was I sat down quietly. I thought about them. I thought about the awful things they'd done or said. Look up to God, to heaven, wherever you're looking. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. I love you. Thank you. And you see, within a week of doing that with that person that's giving you grief, they soften. Does it make them be a perfect person? Made them better. And I didn't have to do anything. I didn't have to change. I didn't have to shout at them. They changed because my attitude to them had changed. And I took responsibility for them being assholes. And it changed. It changed in me. It changed in them. So that's where I feel that I was supposed to go with that.
Well, no, you go where you will, as Mr. Crowley might say. My next question is, do you believe in an antichrist?
I think, certainly within the Rosicrucian tradition, they would believe that there are the Dark Lords. Anywhere in the world that you see chaos for the sake of chaos, you're seeing the work of the Dark Lords in the world. Interesting. Sorry, I keep coming in my head. This is one of my Rosicrucian teachers, and we talked in the Great White Brotherhood, the Great Black Brotherhood, who are supposed to be the great high holies of both sides, And he goes, yes, he says, the Great White Brotherhood, they're not completely white. The Great Black Brotherhood, they're not completely black. They're both a little grey. I always thought, now that annoys Rosicrucians. It really does. I've had a lot of pushback from that one. But I think there's a truth in that. I think there are people in the world who are dark, who don't have as much goodwill for other human beings as they should have. And I think that's a physical thing. Now, is there a spiritual energy? Yeah, I'm pretty convinced that the Black Brotherhood are there because you can see evidence of them in the world with Trump and the state of the world and the state of Iran and you can see it. It's chaos for the sake of chaos. Different. If you go in and cause chaos and you fix something, okay, maybe. But chaos for the sake of chaos. Because it's like the whole thing about, 30 or 40 years ago, there's going to be a chicken flu and 3/4 of people in the world are going to die and things are over. And then the chicken flu went and 6 people got sick and it didn't matter. And then, then there's the monkeypox. The monkeypox is going to kill half the people in the world and it's going to be a human went and half a dozen people got sick. And they do that all the time because they want... Human beings don't function properly when they're in panic mode. So rule number 1, make humans panic. Everything's crap. Everything's out of sync. Everything's out of balance. Everything's out of... And I think... So yes, there are energies, spiritual energies. An antichrist... no, not really. But again, I have an odd overview of what the Christ thing is anyway. In the early day of the Christian church, they used to talk about Jesus, that he was actually the light of the world. And of course, Christians don't accept that. They accept that, well, it was a metaphor. No, it wasn't. It was taught for about 300 years after Jesus was here that he was the sun god incarnate in the world. Now, I think it's possible. And it's like, what was it? Whenever God was doing the creation, she went, let there be light. Oh, right. Really? And where's the light come from? Oh, that was one of the other interesting things in the Rosicrucian thing. They used to have the meditation to experience God's primal being, and it's darkness, and it's lightless, and it's soundless. And they used to have rooms. I don't know how many people have them anymore, and they had no noise, no sound, and to sit in God's primal state for any more than a couple of hours, I'm thinking, if that's what God's primal state, it mustn't have been much crack. That's why she made this, because that was awful. There was no light, no nothing, no. So that's why I think so many of the orders, the schools, the Rosicrucians, the Druids, they're all coming. What do you seek here? I seek more light. And it's all about. Go ahead.
Yeah, Clive. Yeah, I think they do get humans worried a lot when they come out with coronavirus and all like that.
Yeah.
Panic flu. They just like, they panic people.
Of course, that's awful. I mean, trying to find a point of balance. Interesting. This has been health-wise. This has been the 2 worst years of my life. I had a heart attack 18 months ago. I had 2 wee strokes last year, and it really gets you to the point. And even working within the healthcare thing, it's all, oh, you could die here. Oh, this is it. If you don't do this, if you don't take this tablet, you could be dead this time next year. You could be. And I'm going, why are you doing this? Oh, we want to get you well. You're not making me well. You're making me sicker. Stop doing that. I mean, it's like my biggest thing with doing healing with people is I hug. I like to hug, because when you hug people, you can feel. And if they're sick somehow, they're sticky. Their energy is all sticky. And what I like to do is, if I get in close to somebody and they're worried about having something, if I can tell them they don't have it, and I can feel they don't have it, I can help bring them back into balance, because they're not afraid, they're not scared, they're not waiting to die, they're not. There was a very dear friend of mine 30 years ago, and she was given a terminal diagnosis. Now, let me point out again, it had nothing to do with me. I was just the person in the middle. And I met them in an airport in Zurich. Maybe 40, 30 or 40 years ago. And I saw him and his wife. And they used to come hear me sing when I was out and about. And they were just telling me in the airport that she was terminal and she was going to be dead in 6 months. And I looked at her, and I mean, people roll their eyes when I do this. And I put my hands on her and I said, "You're not going to die." And she said, "No, I'm going to be dead." But I said, "No, you're not going to die." And I knew she wasn't going to die. And yeah, she's been clear for 40 years, totally clear, 40 years. Part of the skill of a proper healer is to get that person back into balance, because most of the time, if you can restore their equilibrium and their balance, their bodies will start working to heal and fix whatever's in there, if you can. So that's most of the stuff we do is to try and get people into balance. There's some of the great NLP things. They have an anchoring technique where you can get yourself into your very, very best state within 10 seconds. And what do they call it? The Pavlov's dog thing. I'm sorry, my memory's going to let me down today. But I can't remember the name of it. But the technique, and I teach this at all the workshops, the anchoring technique. Basically, what you do, this will change your life if you want to do this. You think your very, very best thing business-wise, when you were at your most successful, and you find a bodily thing, a way to put your hands, or a way. My anchor is that. And I have friends of mine pull their ears. I have other friends who pull their eyebrow and whatever. And that reminds them that when they feel good, they do that. And you keep doing that. You keep doing that. Oh, look at that rainbow. Look, anchor that. Oh my God, look at that bird. And you anchor everything. Now what happens is you're telling your body when something great happens, you do that. So on that one morning that you get up and you feel crap and you can't be bothered, you just do your anchor. And your body knows that when you do that, you feel great. So you do. And This is how long it takes my anchor to work. I'll show you what it is. This is how long it takes to work. And that's it. All my endorphins or everything are going. They're all firing off, and I've got a hit. And that's the one thing I think, one of the most valuable things that I teach. And it's an NLP technique, but I teach it in all the balls. And people keep going, that's the most useful thing I've ever been taught. Yeah. How do you get into your best energy as quickly as possible? And that's if I have any skill, I try to do that. Get people into their best state all the time and stay there. So sorry, did I get off topic again? Did I?
Well, that's fantastic, and I'd like to think that our audience will take into account. I certainly will. Before we go, I'd like to talk about two very important people.
Yeah.
First of all, Ben McBrady. How did you meet, and what sort of a man was he?
Ben McBrady, I was on tour with Van Morrison in Ireland, and Van was bored, as he often is, and he said to Derek Bell from the Chieftains, get me somebody interesting to talk to. So the first person Derek Bell took us out to see was Olivia Robertson, who's the head of the Fellowship of Isis. Now, Olivia was the 70-year-old hippie, and she gave off this air of craziness. She wasn't crazy. She was a genius. She was absolutely incredible. So we had a great, she ended up, she was a friend of mine for the 30 years after that we met. And Van hated her, thought she was an arsehole, and thought, we'd get us out of here, get us out of here. So get us somebody interesting. So Derek Bell goes, I've got somebody really interesting. There's a guy who's the last druid. And of course, I'm going, what? Really? Got to see him. So we arranged to go to a big house it'll come to me in a minute, outside Arklow. Yeah. And we went down there for a meal, and a lot of friends were there, and Ben was there, this wee man with glasses and ponytail and whatever. And it's like we were all sitting waiting on him, and we were just sitting there, and all of a sudden everybody went, like, nobody heard him come in, but you felt him come into the room. And it was like everybody went, and wow, look, and this way, and he, over the years, he wouldn't allow anybody to do the high holy being thing. He hated it, and he wouldn't tolerate it, and he would stop working with you if you were doing that stuff with him. So we sat down and chatted all night, and Van grumped and complained and whatever, poked through his dinner, and and that was okay. Got to the end of the dinner, and Van turned to me and he goes, these people have nothing. I'm getting out of here. And he basically, as soon as dinner was up, he went up, walked out without saying anything to anybody, got out, slammed the door and walked out. And Ben just was sitting on this tea, and he went, do you know, with all his money, that's the poorest man I ever met. And that summed up the Van Morrison experience. It really was. So when we got to the end of the thing, it's about 3 o'clock in the morning, and I said to Ben, I said, look, I'm already in the Order of Bar Druids and Druids in England. Would you take me on as a pupil? And he goes, yeah, okay, come on down and see me in 2 weeks' time. And that was it. And I had 6 years of training. Now, the normal Druid training is 18, 19 years. So I know I didn't get the whole training. I'd be the first person to put my hands up and say, but I had 6 years of Ben McBrady being my direct teacher. And he held the lineages and authorities of the old Gaelic order, the one that came from Phoenicia in 1200 BC, the authority of the Irish Druid order, and the Celtic Church energy that Jesus had given to Lugar MacLugar. And he gave me those before he died. Literally, I had the initiations, but he'd give me the transmissions. I was down with him around the winter solstice the year before he died. He died in the January then after that, but he handed them all over to me. And he says, you've got them all now. But he says, you have to give me a new way for a new day. He says, the old ways are finished. The old ways of doing things are gone. And he said, as long as you promise me you'll get a new version of this, a new way for a new day, he said, I'll transmit it to you. And I said, of course I will. And he transmitted it to me in his yard, and it was absolutely breathtaking. And it was like he stood and he put his hands on me, and as I could feel this energy, I looked behind him, and there was somebody standing behind him with their hands on his shoulders, and somebody behind him with it, and there was this fucking line of people all in his yard. I mean, God, and it seemed to be up. Maybe it wasn't up, but it felt like they were. But it was a long lineage of what the whole thing was. The McBrady family, Luger MacLuger's descendant was Dovtak MacLuger. And Dovtak MacLuger is a really important guy in history in Ireland. He's the guy who met the man who was St. Patrick, and they became friends. And before they broke up, they exchanged initiations. Patrick initiated him into that Celtic churchy thing that he had, and Luger initiated him into the Druids, which is just in true Celtic Christianity and Druidry. There's a real crossover point the whole way down. This is why I can say this, can't I? I think when I joined the Order of Bards, Obites and Druids, it was the order that belonged to Philip Ross Nichols, the verger in the Church of England. And it had they invoked archangels, they invoked the saints of the lands, they invoked all, because they're all energies. And as Ben told me in some of the stuff, I mean, the archangels are all so much older than religion, Christianity, or anything else, or even Judaism or whatever. They're millennia older than that. So they were all power sources. And Obod, after they did the first few years, I've had this argument, by the way, with Philip Cargom. They decided the majority of the membership in Obod were left-wing pagans, and they got Philip to take out anything that was Christic, all the saints, any Christic lectures that were in it, even though some of them were breathtaking. And then they changed the rituals, and they changed and so Obod went from being this incredible, very English Druid order with it was the cleanest thing I've ever been in out of any order I've ever joined. It was the cleanest, purest stream of power and energy. It was incredible. So the new Obod is now a pagan organization. They've taken all that stuff out, and it doesn't feel like that anymore. And Philip and I, we got a charter for a grove here, and they sent me the new pagan rituals. And I said to Philip, I don't want this crap. I want the old ones. Can't have them. I said, what do you mean I can't have them? We're not doing those anymore. I said, what do you mean you're not doing them anymore? Well, he says that, the majority of the membership were more pagan, so we've moved the order here. I said, what happens to the other stuff? We're setting it to one side and we're not doing it. I said, I don't want to do this stuff. I want to do that stuff. And he goes, well, he says, when we did the home rituals, they're sort of cut down versions of the big rituals. Use those if you want them. And I goes, Philip, here's the thing, and this is really important. I'm going to say it on here. I know it'll not go down well with some people. I said, what happens to the old egregore of the original Obod? And he goes, how do you mean? I said, well, the new rituals aren't going to invoke that, and they're not going to empower it. So you're creating a new egregore. And he looked and he went, well, yeah, maybe. And I goes, what happens to the old egregore and the old rituals? Who's going to be working with that? Oh, nobody. And I went, yeah, good luck. And anytime we do any Obod stuff, we use the older rituals. And there's a problem. Obod was so clean. Do you know, it was like when I was doing Obod rituals, it was like standing in the top of the hillside and smelling that fresh air and the trees. And it's not that anymore. It doesn't, the work doesn't feel like that. And I'm not knocking Obod. I love Obod and I'm grateful for all it gave me. And I love Philip Cargom and whatever. But that was my feeling about that. Sorry, I got on that one. I just felt I should. So I did.
Before we finish, I feel as if we need to mention your daughter, Charlie Hall, who's been a guest on our shows before. Tell us a little bit about Charlie.
I was with Charlie's mother for a year, and then we broke up, and I didn't see Charlie from she was 1 till she was 18. And then she contacted me on her 18th birthday, and we only see each other a few times a year now because she's in Sutton and I'm here. But out of all my children, she was the only one became a musician. She was the only one who does mystical, magical, occulty. And I mean, she's me. I mean, she's me. Even we're together, it's like us, me. She's me and I'm her. And it's like all my kids that grew up around me, nothing. They don't do music. They don't do mystical. And whenever Charlie was here last summer, the two of us took my youngest daughter, and the three of us went out around some ancient sites up here to do ritual. And the power that I had doing ritual with my two daughters was mind blowing. Whether it's family energy, and yeah, there was something very, very special about it. We can't get together enough because my kids are always doing, and they're working here and they're doing. I don't see Charlie a couple of times a year, and but I would like, if I could, to get all my family, all the energies in the family to get together, because there's no doubt about it, whether it's through bloodline or whatever it is, but there's an energy and that family lineage. It's probably the same in anybody's family lineage as that, but there's an incredible power of me and my girls working. As I say, none of the rest of the family are interested, but I would love to get doing more of that. And yeah, as we said earlier on, I mean, Charlie's doing really well at the minute. She's involved in that new TV show, Hunt Me If You Can, I think it's called. And they've got funding from one of the Sky channels, and it's going to be very big. It's going to be very successful this year, you know. So it's great. I'll have a famous daughter now.
Yes, indeed. Yes. Well, that's all we have time for.
I would buy like a shot. That was quick.
Yes, like almost
really. Wow.
Culbertson, thank you very much.
A real pleasure. Thanks for having me on. I really enjoyed it, and I hope I didn't bounce around too much. I can't do linear anymore. It doesn't work for me.
Sometimes linear is passe.
Brilliant.
It's goodbye from me and goodbye from Chris.
Goodbye from me.
Please like and subscribe, and we'll catch you next time on the Shadowcast.